And let's turn our attention now to Scotland, where a lot has been happening. We do have a person of Pakistani origin, Hamza Yusuf, now taking over as the First Minister there in Scotland. The Scottish Nationalist Party continues to be the largest party in Scotland, and they continue to say, we need another referendum. We need to reopen that entire question of Scottish independence. And yes, Brexit did have something to do with that, because remember, in Scotland, a lot of people didn't want to leave the European Union. The vast majority of people in Scotland did vote to say we would like to remain in the EU. Now, time has passed. Economically, things are not going that well. And that is why, once again in Scotland, there is talk about let's have another referendum and let's reopen the entire question of Scottish independence. Now, remember, there was a referendum. And in that referendum, the people of Scotland said we would like to continue to be part of Great Britain. But that was before Brexit. Recent opinion polls say something somewhat different. If you were to have another referendum just right now, it is possible that the result could be different to what it was in the last referendum. But let's just turn our attention to this entire question. Could there actually be a referendum? Is Scottish independence something that could even be possible?
The story begins in the 9th century. That is when the independent Kingdom of Scotland was formed. Its neighbour was the Kingdom of England. The two remained independent of each other until the year 1603, when the two united and came under the same monarch. Cut to 1707, the Parliaments of Britain and Scotland passed Acts of Union. The two became Great Britain. But social and cultural differences between the two remained, and this gave rise to demands for self-governance. Demands for going back to being independent. Two referendums were passed in the years 1979 and 1997. They led to the formation of the Parliament of Scotland. But this Parliament had limited powers. It could make laws on health, education, but decisions related to defence, foreign policy or economy were taken in London, which is why the demand of Scottish independence never really died. Cut to 2014, Scotland held another referendum. The question was simple: should Scotland be an independent country? 45% voted yes, but the majority, 55%, voted no. They voted for Scotland to stay in the UK. It's been almost a decade since, and a lot has changed in this time. But there's also been Brexit. Some think 62% of Scottish voters had voted against. And now they believe that Britain's final decision to exit from the EU was against Scottish interest. Brexit renewed Scotland's push for independence. It once again highlighted the fault lines in this union. But for a referendum to happen, Scotland would need London's nod. So far, it hasn't been able to secure that. In 2019, then Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon requested then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson for a referendum in 2020. Johnson said no. Why? He said that the 2014 referendum was intended to be a quote-unquote once-in-a-generation vote. Sturgeon sent another request for a referendum in 2022. Johnson again said no. The Supreme Court of the UK then said that Scotland cannot hold a referendum without the UK government's approval. Earlier this year, Hamza Yusuf became the new leader of Scotland. He belongs to Sturgeon's pro-independence party, the SNP, or the Scottish National Party. Soon after coming to power, Yusuf sought British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's permission for a second referendum. Sunak was quick to say no. The question is, for how long will the UK be able to continue saying no? Today, Scotland wants different things than the UK. It believes in free university education, inclusion of the LGBTQ community. Scotland wants a more open immigration policy. It wants green policies. Analysts say Scottish independence is no longer a question of if, it is a question of when.